Welcome to the Orlando Life, where we connect you to Orlando's local culture through the stories that are shaping it. We're proud to call Orlando home, and there's no doubt we love to rep it. In this interview, I sit down with JR Tanghal, president of the Hope for More Foundation. JR puts together some of the most memorable fundraising events in town. With his annual Anti-Gala event happening on February 7th, we met at Sullivan Productions to talk about what makes it unique, why he takes time out of his career to serve in this role, and as someone who grew up here, what he hopes to see happen in the downtown area. You have an event coming up February 7th. I was for the first time at one of your events, the Fashion and Hope event. Yeah. And I met you shortly before that to do a story on you. You became the president of the Hope for More Foundation in August.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And I got a little bit of your backstory, and there's an article that people can go check out and read more about that. But my experience at Fashion and Hope was interesting because I've been to fashion shows around Orlando, and then I came to yours, and it's a lot of the same people kind of coming in and out, but the vibe was different. And I remember you telling me that you push the boundaries with your fashion event, that you bring a little bit more of a risque kind of approach to it without going over the edge, but like you bring more of a risque. I heard people like, I'd say hooting and hollering as the show was going on, but people, it was almost like if they were wearing buttoned up shirts, they unbuttoned a couple buttons, and it felt more like an after party.
Right.
But still, it was held at the Bentley dealership. Fields Bentley? Right?
Fields Motor Cars, Bentley, Lamborghini, and Rolls Royce.
See, I would have never gotten that. But the venue was great, the vibe was great, and everyone that I talked to loved it. And then we do a follow-up, and it turns out that you raised $200,000.
Yeah, it was probably one of the higher, if not the highest, one of the highest fashion show fundraising events in Orlando, which I'm pretty happy and proud to say. But yeah, we like to push the boundaries. That's kind of what the Hope for More Foundation kind of like started with. Like I think we've always, a lot of people that go to charity events like yourself, or events in general, I don't want to say they're routine or boring. They're just, or stuffy for that matter. It's just kind of, they're all similar for the most part. You know, obviously there's a great mission that you're raising money for. There's a cover charge and a sit down dinner, some type of formality to it. You kind of go through the routines, and what Jessica Haynes, who started this foundation, wanted to do was something different. And we started off with the Anti-Gala that we talked about, but with the fashion show, I kind of wanted something similar, and I wanted to push the boundaries because fashion shows tend to be very much the same thing. Just, you know, you've got the 45 minutes of a fashion show, and you know that's great. You get to see the pretty girls, the designers, and all that fun stuff. But I was like, well, let's turn this into a party. Let's make it fun. Let's engage. Let's have the models engage. And I mean, they're on stage. They want to have just as much fun as we do. So let's put all of it together. Throw some alcohol involved, and find a cause and make it happen. And that's kind of what we did. And it's turned into something. And I honestly, we talked about the other day. You asked me what my plan was, and I didn't think I would even get to this part to have a plan. It was more or less to throw a party and promote other events and other businesses, and it turned into this collaboration, which I love. That's my favorite part of the fashion show is the collaboration of everyone local, as much as we can local, to be involved. But now it's gotten to the point where models and designers from out of the city, from Miami, New York, are calling to be in the show. And I used to beg people to come to their show. Now they're calling to be in it, which is really cool. So yeah, the vibe has taken on its own culture, and I think that's pretty cool. And that's kind of what we've done with Hope for More, is kind of develop that culture of the anti-establishment, almost kind of like retro punk type of thing, but doing it all for a good cause. And I think everyone that's involved with the foundation, everyone that's been involved with us on the sponsorship side, to the people that come to the events, it's authentic, and I think they like that aspect of it. It's not going to be the same routine kind of charity event or foundation for that matter. We're just going to kind of do something a little bit different with the same appeal that everybody always does, but had our own little edge to it, if you will.
Yeah, and I think you are a master of this cocktail of creativity. Like, you have figured out how to take different elements, bring it all together, and create an environment that people really enjoy. But here I said, let's cut to the chase and talk about what's coming up, and then we just dove back into it. See, this is what happens when you create something with good vibes. You can't help but not talk about it. You have an event coming up, the Anti-Gala. And the more that I hear about this, I feel like you've taken this kind of traditional way of raising money, suit and tie, black tie events, and you've given a little bit of a punk rock kind of energy to it, right? Talk to me about the Anti-Gala.
Those that have gone to charity black tie galas, they are great. They're a lot of fun. You've got to get a suit, tie, tuxedo. Females have got to get hair, makeup, dress. They got to get, everyone's got to look good. It's adult prom for the most part. And you spend a lot of money just to do that. And then tickets are usually a couple $100s just to be there. Tables are going to be probably $3,000 or $4,000 for a table just to sit there. So after going to a couple of those events for over some time, we wanted to do something different. I'm like, well, why don't we do the same concept and not get dressed up and not spend all that money, save the money, buy the ticket for $200 and just use that money to go towards the charity that you're raising money for. The first event was like, everyone was like, what do you mean? What do we wear? I'm like, oh, it's anti. Just come as you are. Like, what does that mean? Like, really, I don't care what you wear. No.
Nobody wants to show up wearing something and go,
oh, I'm underdressed.
No one told me. And
Yeah.
I've had friends that have done that with my own parties. I said, oh, we're going to do this. And then they show up and they go, man, you didn't tell me that this was the way it was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because it'll be cold. Usually, February it's a hit or miss. Like right now, it's cold in Orlando. It doesn't typically happen, but it's just hit or miss. And so, like, one year it's been really cold, one year it's been hot. Like the first couple of years, we're like, well, you didn't tell me it's gonna be cold. I'm like, well, I mean, I don't have to tell you everything. I mean, it's Anti-Gala. I mean, you can wear whatever you want. If you wanted to come into a t-shirt and board shorts, that's fine. But it's cold outside. Like things like that. Like people get so used to the routine. But I think once you get there and you realize, this is cool. Usually at a black tie gala, you'll have a 4-course meal, but instead of doing that, we bring 4 different food trucks, and so your ticket gets your dinner for the night with those different food trucks, which is cool because you are supporting local groups. It's open bar, so we'll have all the alcohol donated by Wally's Bar and Liquor, which is Orlando's oldest bar. It's just kind of a legendary bar that they've partnered up with a foundation, and they help us get all the alcohols donated and supplied. Tito's is a big sponsor. So open bar, 4-course meal, and then we do outdoor tailgates and the silent auction, which is the same type of stuff that you'd get at a black tie gala, but it's all outdoors. So that's kind of where the anti part really kind of comes in on that aspect. But instead of doing it at a fine hotel, we're doing it at a fine dealership that we did with like we did with motor cars with Bentley and Rolls Royce. Fields is a big partner of ours, and they are fortunate to give us, or we are fortunate to host our events at their venues. And so Fields BMW in Winter Park, we basically take over the entire dealership. The outdoor aspect is where most of the party is at, but we also have the inside part of it. So there are beamers everywhere, open bar, silent auction, food trucks all around, and you kind of come in and you kind of expect one thing. It's just really a big outdoor tailgate, just I don't want to say upper class, but more or less fancier without the football game.
Live music?
Live music. We do have a band that another local band, local bar, Tuffy's in Sanford, is sponsoring Silver Linings Band. They play there often. They came highly recommended. They're a big local band, and they're playing all night for us, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Because it's put on by Hope for More Foundation, is it always raising money for the same things?
So what's great question, because this is obviously a big charity event. Hope for More is a nonprofit ourselves. So we definitely partner with different charity groups in Orlando to help funds and awareness. Different than the fashion show where we pick a charity. We ourselves are also a nonprofit, so we can get the money. But what we do with Anti-Gala is we distribute the funds that we get. So last couple of years we raised 6 figures from this one event, and we'll pick about 8 to 10 different charities throughout the year and just give them money for whatever their needs may be. We did one with Chance to Dance where they needed the dance floor for their children. It was kind of just outdated. They wanted to soundproof it. They needed about a $10,000 budget. I think it was like $8,500. And I called them because I had met them through the fashion show, and they kind of had a need out there. I saw it on social media, and I reached out and I was like, hey, if I cut you a check for this, would you be able to afford that dance floor? And I mean, tears immediately came out of it. So just the one event kind of came in, and we cut them a check. They did the before and after of the whole of the transition of it. And it was really cool to kind of see that. And we also partnered with a couple different other groups. I think Heavenly Beds was another one that we partnered with, and we got beds for their organization. So a lot of the smaller organizations, $5,000-$10,000 goes a long way. With a donation. So that's kind of what this event is for. Is we try to raise as much money as we can, and then try to distribute the funds throughout the year, so as many charities as we can in that factor.
So you reached out to me the other day, and we were talking about the podcast that I did with Biggie.
Right.
And a lot of what we talked about was just why. I shared a little bit about why I do what I do, and you had brought up your why. And and the way you mentioned it was just remembering your why. And I think that's so common that we can get so busy and life can get so challenging, right? Like
right.
we don't slow down, and sometimes it takes the eye off of some of the reasons why we do things. Talk to me about your why. You talked about reigniting it again in 2026.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What is your why, and what does that mean for you to reignite it?
I'm one of the rare, I guess, Orlandoans that actually like grew up here and like kind of stayed. I wasn't born here. I was born in New York, and I moved down here when my parents moved here when we were 5. So I'm 45 now. So 40 years I've been here. I was raised in downtown Orlando. Went to school, Boone High School, which is all downtown. I went out in my 20s and 30s and early 40s in downtown Orlando, and I kind of just grew up in the city. And from the moment I started going out and kind of just being out and working in the city and kind of being around everyone that was involved in the city, I was like I felt like I always had to give back. I was like I'm really fortunate to have really good friends and a great family that kind of support my wants and needs and raise me to the person I am now. I wanted to give back to the community in that manner. Like I felt like I owed it. I feel like I owe it. Which is where I started doing some of these smaller events and kind of led to one thing and it led to another. We had talked about Guys with Ties, and that's how I kind of got my start in like this nonprofit world. Was like I kind of joined a group that started doing events and getting our name out there. And before I knew it, like my name was like kind of like the lead name for Guys with Ties at that time of putting on these events. And I made some really great friends that kind of followed me into where we're at now with Hope for More, and some of the sponsors and consistent donors that we have followed me, have not followed me. We've worked together and grew up together since they were bartenders, now owners of bars and restaurants. So that always fueled or ignited, as you said, my desire to do more. And now that I'm in this position of running the foundation and having a group of people that have the same wants and needs and desires to give back, it's always fun to remember like that why. And it's more or less just there's always a need to give back. And Orlando is going through this weird transition of whatever we're going through right now, and I feel like there's a way to kind of give back even more and try to figure that out and navigate through it. And so when I listened to your podcast, I was like, and you were talking about authenticity and keeping things real and why you were doing it. I'm like, that's right. That's is what I was doing. Not that I forgot. Like you just get busy, and you're planning the next event. You're just getting through one event to get to the other event, and it burns you out. It's tiring. But I had to remind myself, and thank you for reminding me of what you're doing it for, to remind me what I'm doing it for. And when you hear those stories of the events that we do and like the money that we raise, or the people that just meet from those events, or the connections that are made, it's motivating. You just tend to forget it sometimes, and you're just so used to like, all right, did the show go on time? Did the band start the music on time? Is that vendor going to be here when he said he was going to be here? Just to make sure the certain look goes well. When you just tend to forget, all we're really doing is throwing a party, and people are going to show up and they're going to have a great time regardless. But if you can just find that right cocktail to make it work, it does go a long way. And sometimes you just forget about it. And I did. So I got to remember. So thank you.
You're welcome. I think it's funny you say like it's just a party. It's just a party, right? And yet you're creating moments where I'd be curious to know how many people met each other at your event, how many friendships were formed because of that event. You obviously understand, like from the nonprofit side, you're helping people. That's an easy way to understand, because you're gathering the donations and then you're helping directly someone, and you can kind of
Right.
see that. But what you don't know is how many people, and I'd be curious to know if there's anyone that listens to this right now, did you meet someone, and did you form a friendship, or maybe it was a business relationship or something that furthered your connections here in the local area just by an event that you put on? And you never know, because there's just so many people,
Right.
and so
Right.
many things can spur from that.
Spur sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think what you're doing is incredible. Because it can get busy, and because you care deeply about it, you can find yourself immersing yourself so much into it that it can burn you out. What are some things that you need? For me, I'm honored to be a media sponsor for the event.
Right.
And and support you in what you're doing, what other things do you need that would, in some ways, make your life easier in helping raise money to help families?
Well, it's one. Thank you. You have to. You and I meeting, I think there was obviously a reason. I think we were both very authentic in what we're trying to do, and I think that's kind of where our energies kind of match. Like right when we met, we kind of kicked, just hit it off
Definitely.
on just specific goals or relatively similar goals on what we're trying to do with Orlando and what we're doing with Orlando Life, which I think is awesome. So that is a huge help in itself. Just the media and the content that we got from the fashion show was just, there was a reason why we got to $200,000, and it was definitely one what y'all were doing. So I think we really appreciate that, and I definitely appreciate that. You'd mentioned the relationships and people meeting. I think to me, that's also that's one of the main things of why I do it. That's one of my whys, is like I know like that's gonna happen. It's really cool to kind of see things. I was looking back to Old Guys with Ties events, and I remember a couple that got married. They met at the party, and then years later they got married. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I had something to do with that. That's kind of cool to kind of look back and see. And then you brought that up. I'm like, I think that there's stuff like that happens, but I also know there's business relationships that have happened after that, and that's really cool to see. And a lot of my really good friends have come from shrinking this town by doing these types of events or going to these events. What I found by doing these events and going to these events is the community wants to support the community. They just have to be the bridge. There's got to be a bridge or an outlet, and if I can be that bridge or outlet, I love that aspect. To answer your question without a long roundabout way, I think the more that we come together and find groups that you want to help out, I would love it if it was Hope for More. That would definitely help out. We definitely need a lot more supporters, more consistent supporters, sponsorships to help put on these events. Is what people tend to forget is, at least they may not even know, Hope for More is a bunch of board members. It's 7 board members that have full-time jobs. This is not our full-time gig. We're doing a part-time gig with full-time hours. So that's really where the kind of the burnout comes through. It's finding people that want to do it for the right reasons. I mean, everyone can go to an event and put on a party. You throw a party at your house on the weekend. Like we're about to do that with the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. Most people are going to throw parties. It's not terribly hard, but even doing that's going to cost some money. When you go to extreme scales that we're doing, there's a cost involved in it. And when you're a nonprofit, as every nonprofit knows, you're literally begging for money at some point, or you're trying to find people that will match you and help you. In-kind sponsorships are great. They do go a long way, but there's a cost involved in it. So that's always, it's a fine line of like, how do you ask for money without asking too much or not enough, or that's the kind of the trick, the fine cocktail that you got to, we have as nonprofit and philanthropists have to figure out. And I mean, you're going through it right now with Orlando Life, is how do we capitalize on certain things without making it too corporate?
How do we not make it? How do we not junk it up?
Correct.
Keeping its authenticity and making sure, because I think the importance of telling the story of Orlando at this point is even more important than down the road. It's right now we're documenting. There's stories that matter to who we become in the future. Talking about just the busyness, and we had to reschedule this one because this isn't your full-time job.
Right.
You're in medical sales.
Yes.
And you have surgeries to be a part of. And we were supposed to do it, and then we had to push it out, and then we had to find space to do it. And thank you to Solomon Productions for allowing us to do it here. We're all living these busy lives. And so if there is something, whether it's contributions or maybe services,
Yeah, I mean, going to the Hope for More website, kind of seeing what we're about, and the name not just Hope for More. I mean, obviously, I want to promote our group, I want to promote Orlando Life, but there's so many smaller nonprofits. There's so many nonprofits in general in Orlando. I'm part of a group called the Victory Cup, and they what this group does is get applications from basically every nonprofit in Orlando, and everyone applies to get money to use towards their funds, and it's like, seeing the amount of nonprofits in Central Florida, like it's mind-boggling. Like there's like stuff I'm reading about, like I've never even heard about them. I mean, and they're doing great things. There's so many people doing a lot of really good things. So I encourage people, like especially if you're new to Orlando or you've been here for a little bit and you haven't felt at home, and which I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, find something that you do like, something you're passionate about, whether it's a foodie or a beer that you mentioned, a brewery or football games or whatever that is. And find that passion and find groups that are kind of within that. And then if it is a nonprofit side, they do a lot of fun events. We do a lot of great events, and then shrink that down, shrink the city down, and before you know it, this will feel like at home, and you'll want to be a part of something and part of whatever that is, and kind of make a difference. Because I think just the smallest acts go a long way. And going back to the fashion show, that was just simply an event to promote another event, and before I knew it, I'm 15 years in. It's become the event that I put on. Like it's now become like just this thing that's part of me now. Like we're like kind of attached to it. So I didn't think that was going to get to that point. So you just don't know where it's gonna take you.
Yeah, and hats off to the stylists, the photographers,
Right.
the videographers, the models, the people that have contributed their time.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes on. I mean, I saw just a little bit of it. You know, you had a lot more behind the scenes, and I got some stories behind that. But there are people that are setting aside important times in their lives to go off and support what
Those
you're doing.
stylists that you mentioned, the hairstylists, the makeup artists, they are not just donating their time. It's the product is getting used, and like I mean, obviously those products you can't reuse that, so it's hours and it's lots of dollars. I think we calculated over $250,000 of free product that was given to the fashion show because of what the community has come to do. That's always moves me, and it's kind of a running joke with everyone involved in the show. It's like, at what point does JR cry in the opening speech? Because it's when you look around and you see, and then this even goes for the Anti-Gala, when you look around and you see all the vendors, you see all the volunteers, you see everyone that put all these hours, and you're like, this is a lot. It's moving, and then it all comes together when you get the money involved, and then like, all right, now here are the charities that you're gonna take care of and help out, and then you meet the families or the kids that need that money, and you're like, all right, all those hours, like this screaming, the blood, sweat, and tears, it's all worth it. But it takes a while to get there.
Let's jump to a different topic here. Let's talk about Orlando. We were talking about it as we were getting ready for the cameras to start. You grew up here. You've seen downtown in what many I've heard refer to it as its heyday.
Yeah.
There was music going on downtown. You know, I had the honor of interviewing some people who played a big role, like Shani Ray and the Sapphire Supper Club, and like what she did to bring artists down here in the 90s. And I think Sapphire stayed around till the early 2000s and then shut down. And there was a different energy that people are holding on to that doesn't necessarily exist there. There's a new group of people that are wanting something special downtown. You know, as someone who grew up here, what did you see? How did it make you feel like to have the experiences that you had with the downtown Orlando area? And what do you want to see in the future?
You know, all the negative publicity that downtown's getting, it's might be warranted, it might not be. It just, there's always gonna be a transition phase. I remember growing up because my mom worked in downtown Orlando. She worked at SunTrust, and so we weren't the most wealthy family. We're definitely middle class. But for me to get a car, I had to drive her to work every day, and I'd drop her off at work, and then I'd pick her up in the afternoon. So I was downtown all the time, and I mean, Boone High School, 5 minutes away from downtown Orlando. So I was there all the time, and you know, she laughs at me because she was the original Tanghal that got all the hookups, because she worked downtown, she knew all the people there, and so when I would walk in the evening, they're like, oh yeah, you're Mila's son, and I always hated it because she was my mom. Like, how is she more popular than I was? But but it turned into this thing, like I was always there, and I met some of my really closest friends from the time I was growing up in those early 20s, even high school days, to where I am now. I met downtown. I mean, I had a lot of girlfriends, ex-girlfriends I met through downtown Orlando. It was just a different community, and I don't know what really like kind of triggered it. COVID might have had something to do with it. Things kind of changed, but it was a time where you could just go out and at any time of day or hour and feel safe. It doesn't necessarily feel that way now. But what I was alluding to was I was growing up in my early teens, downtown wasn't the safest. So this isn't the first time that we've had this negative publicity on there. It took some people that took the gall and the risks to kind of change things around, and I'm hoping we can do that again. I think I would like to see that aspect. I think every part of Orlando should thrive. Thinking of like the last time like things were like really fun in the early 2000s when the Magic were in the playoffs, and how like everyone comes together, and we had the Pro Bowl, not the Pro Bowl, World Cup, when the World Cup was here, and downtown was coming together, and everyone was thriving and wanting to be out because you wanted to watch the games and get together. Those were like fun times. We just don't see that as often. I think Wall Street's coming back, and the Bills are a big viewing party down there. Florida State used to have a big viewing party downtown Orlando as well. So it was cool to kind of see that aspect, and I'd love for that to happen again. I don't know how that happens. We had talked about, who are those one or two people that are going to, take the bull by its horns and kind of do that. Yeah. I think if we can kind of figure that out, whatever logistics that might be, if we can kind of figure something along those lines, it would be great to have that community back. Because businesses are still down there. I mean, they're not as much, but there's a lot of buildings down there that are occupied. It would be nice to, to have something like that again. It was great when I was in my mid-20s, early 30s, living downtown Orlando, and I could just walk to wherever I wanted. It was a really cool community to be a part of.
Yeah, I remember in 2010 when we moved here, I ended up on Wall Street, and Wall Street had a Magic viewing on Wall Street. Yeah. So you watched the game, and there were, some of the promotion teams from the Magic were there, and they were handing out the sticks, what are they called? The bang sticks?
Bang sticks, yeah.
Bang sticks. And some clappers, and like I remember jumping up on stage, and I'm like, I'm new here, don't care,
Yeah.
like having fun. What are some things that you would like to see downtown?
Yeah, there's been talks for years about doing downtown Orlando, kind of what LA did with the Staples Center, and having kind of like a whole community area, like entertainment zone, if you will, where there's restaurants, bars, businesses, and then you obviously have the arena where the Lakers or where the Magic would play. We have two sporting events within downtown Orlando that, if we kind of figure out how to kind of incorporate when everything's walking distance, or like pedicab away, that you felt safe enough to do all that and kind of see that aspect, it's going to generate a ton of business. There's a restaurant. I keep referring to my early 30s like I'm 90 years old, but in my early 30s, there was a restaurant called the Rusty Spoon that became one of my favorite restaurants. It was right on Church
55
Street.
West, right?
Right 55 West, yeah.
I went there.
I became really good friends with the owners, and that was a spot that we all just went to. And I think it was one of the first restaurants in Orlando that got national attention or international attention, because they were getting Michelin viewings and stuff like that. And I remember doing a filming on a Sunday morning with Emerald. It was this big deal that we were going to be on TV, because Chef Kathleen and William had Emerald coming in. They had partnered with them on some venue or some venture, and it was really cool to see a really cool restaurant in Orlando. I'm like, oh, people are going to come here. Kind of what Henry has with Kabuki. It's become a destination spot, and that was really cool. And I'd love for Orlando to have that again. And then specifically downtown Orlando to have that type of vibe. And come to this restaurant, go to the Magic game afterwards, and we'll come back to the restaurant afterwards, and then go out after that. That's kind of what it was for a good couple years. I was there 2 or 3 nights a week. And I mean, it was farm to fresh to table food. It was awesome. It was just a really cool spot. I'd love to see that again.
Yeah, the Rusty Spoon was the second restaurant I went to in downtown Orlando.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. First one was the Poorhouse. Just went to go grab a burger. And then the second restaurant I went to was the Rusty Spoon.
Yeah. So that TV that was at the bar, they hated me because I had a birthday party and we threw a party and the Magic were in the playoffs. We're we're not coming here if we don't have a TV. So we showed up with a TV and installed it. And Kathleen came out, the chef came out. She goes, "Are you kidding me? You have a bar now." And so they left it.
That's fantastic.
It's a running joke. She goes, "Yeah, thanks a lot. It was supposed to be a fine dining spot and you made it a sports bar." I'm like, well, we brought 40 people.
She kept it.
She kept it.
So how do people find out Anti-Gala? What do they got to do to get tickets?
Our website's hopeformorefoundation.org. On there, you'll see a link for the Anti-Gala. Just click on that link and you'll get tickets. Tickets are $250. You get an open bar, silent auction prizes to bid on, 4 food trucks, and then just a bunch of other swag and stuff, the tailgate games and a live band. So for that amount, you have food, drinks, and entertainment, which going out in Orlando these days, that's a pretty good deal. It's tough to find that aspect, and then knowing that all that money is going to go towards a local charity in Central Florida. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
I
appreciate
thank
you. I love being able to support what you're doing. I'm glad that we get to be a part of another event that you put on, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think that's it.
I appreciate it. Thanks, man.